Hey everyone, Richard from Digital Foundry reporting here from Gamescom 2017, where I've been hands-on with Star Wars Battlefront 2 running on PlayStation 4 Pro. It's a special demo showcasing the new space battle multiplayer, and yes, what you're seeing here is indeed an armed and operational Millennium Falcon, fully playable in the game and looking tremendous. In fact, the whole demo is simply spectacular, and it's a fascinating example of how today's cutting-edge rendering technology is finally realizing something developers have been trying to capture for years, a kind of fully authentic Star Wars experience. Okay, so let's talk basics here. We played Battlefront 2 at EA's Gamescom booth, where 2 rows of 8 PS4 Pros were set up, pitting Imperials against Rebels in a space battle set above the capital world of Coruscant. It's a rebel strike intent on taking down a vast space station, guarded by battalions of TIE fighters, with Imperial forces charged with repelling the invading fighters while destroying as many of the larger rebel ships as possible. Classic Star Wars then, but what really makes this work is just how authentic every single aspect of the presentation is. Now, Battlefront 2 is a pretty vast project, so while key development of the title is happening in Stockholm with DICE at the helm, the vehicle side of the project, including this space battle game mode, is actually being developed in the UK by Criterion Games. Yes, the makers of Burnout and prior Need for Speed titles now operate as a kind of specialist unit within EA, adapting their expertise to ensure that driving and flying games just look and feel, well, sort of correct and right. We saw some excellent work there with the X-Wing PlayStation VR demo, but Battlefront 2 takes this to the next level. So taking things from the top, it's the Frostbite engine's core fundamentals that really help to get that authentic look and feel. With the latest generation of gaming hardware, we have the horsepower to handle the high levels of geometry required to realize models that look uncannily close to the real thing. And this is backed up by DICE's beautifully physically based rendering system. Now, this works in tandem with a system called photogrammetry, where objects are laser scanned in, ensuring absolute fidelity in terms of their shape and material properties. In the case of the ships here in Battlefront 2, you get that authentic sense of a lived-in universe, where rebel fighters and starships in particular have that kind of used, battle-damaged feel. So, we have super accurate models then, but adding tremendously to the quality of the experience is the way that they are lit. Now, the sun here is obviously the most powerful light source in the scene, and what I thought was really cool was the way that volumetric light plays such an important part of the presentation. There's not much in the way of cutscenes in this multiplayer demo, but DICE and Criterion have set up a number of preset sequences for the beginning and end of each skirmish that show this effect off beautifully. Plus, there's a similar third-person camera placement when you and your squadron respawn, your ships kind of cutting through the light beautifully there. Even flying around in general combat, the way that light plays off the ships and the space station really adds to the quality of the presentation. Also note the inclusion of motion blur here. It's not intrusive, it just looks and feels, well, just sort of correct really. It's a great look. As we saw in Battlefront 1 and the last Battlefield, DICE's post-processing pipeline, including color grading passes and temporal anti-aliasing, really are first class, and it's a perfect fit for that specific Star Wars aesthetic. There's also a real sense of mayhem here. There's always a bunch of ships on screen at any given moment, volleys of blaster fire continuously illuminating the scene. Adding to the sense of the player being one small participant in a much larger battle is the audio. Okay, so I'm going to button up for a short while to let the game audio come to the fore here, and you'll see what I mean.
My droid reported severe damage.
Our battle cruisers arrive.
The soundscape is packed with fully authentic sound effects from the Lucasfilm library that are handled beautifully in full surround, plus the radio is alive with chatter from pilots and a battle commander. The final embellishment is the addition of music taken directly from the movie soundtrack, the full John Williams style experience if you like, and it just wouldn't be Star Wars without it.
Take out those shield generators.
Okay, so let's talk a little more specifically about the PS4 Pro code that I played at Gamescom. Now, we've already seen a number of different Pro implementations across a range of Frostbite titles. Battlefield 1's is probably the most interesting here, where it upped visual settings across the board, introduced dynamic scaling and checkerboarding. Obviously, the Battlefront 2 code is far from complete, but the consoles at Gamescom were set to 1080p output. And that's exactly what's being rendered internally, a native full HD presentation, nothing downsampled from higher resolutions, no sign of checkerboarding, dynamic scaling or anything like that. And now it kind of makes me wonder whether we'll see a fully tricked out 1080p mode in the final game. Maybe in addition to a higher resolution mode too for those with 4K screens. Well, we're just going to have to wait and see, but I do know that a lot of Pro users were really hoping that Battlefield 1 would offer a 1080p Ultra option, in addition to the high-res output that we actually got. Okay, so I'm sure you've noticed by now that we're looking at 60 frames per second gameplay here, just like the first Battlefront and indeed Battlefield 1. Now, we're still a couple of months out from completion, of course, but I thought we'd take a look at how consistent that gameplay experience is right now. The bottom line is that for the vast majority of the time, that 1080p 60 is a lock, the Pro offering up a superb presentation at a super smooth, optimal frame rate. As you can see here, even screen-filling explosions, an effect that can really drain GPU resources, well, doesn't seem to be slowing the game down much at all, just single drop frames mostly that the human eye can't really pick up on. The only exception comes when dealing with the massive space station, in particular flying close to the entrance of the structure or indeed passing through it. Frame rate can drop here, resulting in some mild stutter and dips to the mid-50s. Now, this is not completely ideal, but if you look at the frame time graph there, you can see each individual dropped frame. It's not a big deal now, but I'm pretty sure the final optimization push can sort this. There's precedent here. The first Battlefront exhibited some minor performance issues in its beta, which DICE almost entirely resolved by the time the title shipped. I think coming away from this one, I'm just really impressed with the level of achievement here. The Frostbite visual technology, not to mention the talents of the team using it, well, they're kind of reaching their peak for the current generation. I also get the feeling that maybe there's more to come here. We know that the Frostbite development team has spent a long time working on a world-class HDR rendering solution, for example. And while the monitors used at Gamescom weren't HDR in nature, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this feature roll out for all systems by the time Battlefront 2 ships in November. But I also think that it's not just about the technological accomplishments here, it really is about the authenticity of the experience in general and the crowd-pleasing moments that just feel right. Respawning and finding the Millennium Falcon as a selectable ship is just an immense feeling, and taking your X-Wing into battle against Boba Fett's Slave One is another great moment. DICE and Criterion clearly know and respect the source content material and can adapt it effectively into a superb interactive experience. There's the sense here that they're adding to the Star Wars canon as opposed to aping it or just kind of getting it wrong. Okay then, well, this was a real highlight from Gamescom for me, and it's kind of left me hungry for more. I mean, I spent a good 90 minutes playing the same level over and over, swapping sides to experience both the Rebel and Imperial gameplay. And I just want to play more, see more, and check out how this title scales onto Xbox One X and PC. I'm also keen to see how base PS4 and Xbox One can keep up, bearing in mind the 1080p presentation here on PS4 Pro. Now, Frostbite is highly scalable, so I'll be interested to see the nips and tucks there for sure. But, well, I think that's all from me for now. Please do like, subscribe and share to support the work we do here at Digital Foundry, and please do check out our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net, where you can grab pristine quality video downloads of everything we do. But that's all from me for now. Thanks for watching.
We've done it. With that Star Destroyer gone, we've loosened the Empire's grip on this entire system.